Hey there guys, it's me, the Sickly Geek, back again with another video. Now, for those of you who might not know, I love writing, specifically comic books. I have some projects in the work right now, but that's not really what today's about. Now, I'm sure everyone has had that moment where you imagine getting a call from DC or Marvel and them giving you your favorite character. You can do whatever balls to the walls crazy thing that you've always wanted to do with them. Now, this was kind of the idea for this and subsequent videos. Sometimes I get ideas for stories with really random characters. Today is Man-Bat. For those of you who don't know, Man-Bat is Kirk Langstrom, a scientist who is in love with the idea of Batman. He created a serum, yada yada yada, transformed himself into Man-Bat, a Batman creature. You get the idea. Now, in my story, we would pick up on Kirk Langstrom. He's kind of a broken man. His serum was recently stolen from him by his ex-wife and given to Ra's al Ghul in the League of Shadows. If you've read any of Grant Morrison's Batman, you know, the Batman and Son trade, it kind of takes place in that era. Now, Kirk moves to Bloodhaven. He rents a kind of nice high-rise apartment with his new roommate Kevin, who's an Asian American man. Kevin's in his late 20s, while Kirk is mid to late 30s. Kirk, in my story, has gained control over his Man-Bat persona, and has vowed to destroy the League and make sure his serum doesn't fall into anyone else's hands. I've always kind of liked the idea of turning Man-Bat into, not into the Hulk, but more into that type of character. I wanted to explore the idea of Kirk Langstrom the Man. I wanted to make the Man-Bat persona almost a non-factor. That's why I really like the idea of him being in control. I'm really tired of the Jackal Hyde story. It seems to be the only story we can tell with this character. You know, you have a man who has these good intentions, but once he transforms into Man-Bat, they all go awry. Recently, DC did the Forever Evil, and there's an event where the evil Justice League came over, the Crime Syndicate came over, and all the villains took over, and there was this one shot of Man-Bat where he's trying to be a hero, but he keeps on killing everybody because he has no control, and I don't know, I feel like in the entirety of this character's existence, this is the only story we've been able to tell with him. So I was really interested in, you know, Kirk Langstrom the Man. Kirk is a very reserved man. He was a scientist. He's only ever really been with one person, and she kind of ran roughshod over his life. I wanted to tell a story of him kind of exploring who he is outside of this relationship. He begins exploring his sexuality and begins a relationship with Kevin, the roommate. And he also begins exploring being a Cape Crusader. You know, like Batman, you know, the person he admired for so long, the person that almost inadvertently got him into this mess and created the Man-Bat. I wanted to tell a story of finding yourself, kind of hidden under a story about a man who transforms into a giant bat creature and fights bat ninjas. So, the ending of the story has Man-Bat fighting Ra's al Ghul, or Raish, depending on how you pronounce it. I usually just go to Raz, I'm not really sure why, but it's just kind of my go-to, is how my mouth formulates the words. But they're fighting in Nanda Parbat. The climactic battle ends with the entire structure collapsing on Man-Bat and the League of Shadows. Then we fast forward to months later, where we see Kevin and a man eating lunch at a diner. It doesn't explicitly say this is Kirk, but you basically get the idea that somehow Kirk survived it and he's living a happy life now. I've always enjoyed comic stories that have a definitive end. Jeff Jones' Green Lantern, which is one of my favorite Green Lantern runs, if you read the last issue, has an ending. Even though the Green Lantern book's still going on, all the heroes are still doing their thing, he creates an ending for the characters that if you stopped reading the book, if you didn't pick up the next Green Lantern issue, you would feel happy and content with yourself. Almost how a lot of people feel like with Daredevil. A lot of times when a big name writer gets Daredevil, they tell, this amazing story, and at the end of the story, most times, you could leave the story, not read another Daredevil book, and kind of feel content with where you're left. Whether it's at the end of Brian Michael Bendis' run with the mystery of what's going to happen to Daredevil now that his identity's out, or, with the end of the most recent Mark Waid run, which kind of ends on this very happy note with Foggy and Matt's new girlfriend, Dwayne? Dwayne? I feel horrible for not remembering this. But it's been a while since I, actually read the issue, even though it didn't come out that long ago. Anywho, so I really wanted to tell a story with, Man-Bat that was a limited story that had a clear beginning and a clear end. Because that's something that, especially, specifically superhero comics, don't have a lot of times. If you read Image, and most of those books are designed to have an ending. Superhero comics aren't. They're like wrestling. They're continuous stories that don't ever really have an ending. The thing that drew me towards the character of Man-Bat is I felt we never really got a chance to explore him. He's usually a side villain who rose to fame in the animated series, and not many writers, to my knowledge, I will admit I am not the biggest connoisseur of Batman. I have a friend who is, so I probably could have fact-checked with him, but he'll tell me in the comments. I've never really seen a writer that's really fleshed out this character besides that Mr. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde dynamic that we've seen so often. So that's all I've got to say on my Man-Bat pitch. Again, it's not the most, it's kind of a basic idea and basic outline of the things I'd want to do and a clear ending. I'd probably see it as like maybe a 12, 20 issue story, maybe shorter. And I'd have him running into Nissa and his ex-wife, who kind of becomes a she-Man-Bat. I don't think that's her actual name in the comics, like what she goes by, but who turns it, who kind of has the serum. We get more with, kind of Man-Bat going through the generals of the League of Assassins. We get the Man-Bat Batman confrontation of him, Batman, going like, "What are you doing?" Because he's only really known Man-Bat as this crazy killing monster. And yeah, that's all I've got to say on that. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you again soon.